we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on X, Facebook, and on Instagram. I'm Bryson Carver. Sorry about the brief mic trouble there for just a second, but I think we got it working. Thanks for stopping by on this Wednesday. Well, we've got tons to talk about. My man, Josh Tariff. I already messed up his name. I apologize, Josh. Josh Tariff's going to be joining in about 25 minutes. He is the newest member of the Gryd Network, so I want to give him a very warm welcome onto this show, onto this network. So tune into that, or stay tuned for that for another 25 minutes. After that, Bryson's Best 10, a comprehensive top 10 list as we go into week 4 of this NFL season with a lot of huge changes in the standings. Some teams just skyrocketing up, some teams falling, some teams that are undefeated that aren't on the list, some teams have losing records but are on the list. Lots to get into with that. Obviously, we'll touch on Ravens and Lions in just a second. Into the show, Seahawks, Cardinals. Listen, not exactly the sexiest primetime matchup in the NFL, but a one I think you'll definitely want to tune in for. I think we all will. First of all, it's football. Of course, we're going to watch it. But also, it's 2-2-1 teams, NFC West. We kind of have questions about both. I have a pretty strong leaning for this game. I'll touch on that at the end of today's show. But first, well, nothing to see here. Nothing to worry about long-term, at least this year, with the Detroit Lions, because Dan Campbell, what did your group go into Baltimore and M&T Bank Stadium and do on Monday night to the Ravens?
Kneecap.
Boy, those kneecaps were bitten in Baltimore, Maryland on Monday Night Football as the Detroit Lions won a game that was not as close as the score might indicate. 38-30. Baltimore got a garbage time touchdown, but Detroit ran the football all over Baltimore's defense. I understand they were losing some starters in that defensive line, but that was an exercise. That was an exhibition, so to speak, of one team absolutely saying, you can't do anything against us. Football, I've always said this for the longest time on this show, in its most simple form, is you are moving one grown man, moving another grown man or group of grown men against their will. That is line play in the simplest form in the National Football League. And boy, did the Detroit Lions do that, despite some of the losses in the offseason. Frank Ragnow, which I think it was the only show out there outside of Detroit, Michigan, that talked about that loss this summer. Well, it looks like they got his replacement because the new kid they got with the mullet, great. Like, we know Penei Sewell, who he is and what he represents. Best right tackle in football with respect to the injured Lane Johnson. But offense is clicking as good as ever. And we can show you the numbers. They haven't missed a beat. The third in total yards per game are the Detroit Lions. 9th in pass yards per game. 4th in rushing yards per game this season. 2nd in total points per game at 34. I believe if the Ravens hadn't scored that garbage time touchdown, Detroit might be in first. They have 1 turnover, which is tied for 2nd to last in the National Football League. And they were able to put together drives of 96 yards and 98 yards. And they were able to, even though their defense gave up 30. First of all, a lot of teams going to be doing that against the Baltimore Ravens. I'm sorry to inform you. Lamar Jackson is a superhuman talent. Derrick Henry, fumbles aside, is excellent, although he had another quiet game. Am I right on the Derrick Henry starting to slow down slightly? Was I a year early on that train? We'll see how that plays itself out. But you've got good weapons. Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers did nothing, which makes Baltimore scoring 30 even more impressive. But you've still got Mark Andrews who can make plays, DeAndre Hopkins, all of it. Baltimore's going to score a lot of points this year. Their defense, they're almost kind of like what I said the Buffalo Bills would be and have been thus far, where offense is going to have to bail the defense out more times than not. It was the fact that, they forced the Derrick Henry fumble. And in the first half, Baltimore gets a 2nd goal at the 1, come away with nothing. Stop Derrick Henry twice in that spot and then get the 4th down stop to close that drive. Was that not in every way, shape, and form a classic Detroit Lions win? Scoring a lot of points, going for it on 4th down. Didn't we all know? At this point, it's, 31-24, 4th down and short. Of course, Dan Campbell's going to go for it. It was the call, though, because we're thinking, okay, 4th and short. David Montgomery's been torching Baltimore all night. Jahmyr Gibbs, kind of your shifty back, right? Like not Knuckles and Sonic, if I could speak today. But they decide to go play action. I believe it's play action. Deep ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown to essentially end the game before David Montgomery runs it in for a touchdown the very next play. Like that is Detroit in a nutshell. And that is why, listen, I thought this team would take a slight step back. I had them, folks that may not remember this, I picked them to be the 1 seed in the conference, check, and go to the Super Bowl. they were one and done in the playoffs in a game where their defense was bad, and Jared Goff might have actually been worse against the Washington Commanders. I'm not a Lions fan. I'm wearing Lions colors today, I guess. I'm a Steelers fan, but I have been a Detroit Lions believer well before most of the media were. Regardless, loss of 2 coordinators, loss of some, key offensive linemen, all those things, come into fruition and come into the question for the Detroit Lions. And after that first game against Green Bay, I made the point, the Lions moved the ball fine, given how great, we've seen through 3 games, how great that Packers defense is. They couldn't cash in the red zone because creative play calling frees up guys to score. Well, this new guy, pretty good. Now, I don't think this is like an indictment of Ben Johnson, because I think Ben Johnson's done a solid job his first few games in Chicago. You could say that defense in Dallas isn't very good. I think Ben Johnson's come in, stabilized the culture in Chicago. The defense is what the defense is. It's awful over there. But let's get Caleb Williams into the frame of mind, but also develop him into the point and stage where it's like, okay, we've got our franchise quarterback for the long term. Detroit's a ready to win now culture. Detroit's Dan Campbell came in that franchise, 3 wins year 1, but they were in almost all of them. Year 2, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, folks. The Lions started, I think they were 1-6 to start 2022. And it's like, oh gosh, they got 4 wins in a year and a half with Dan Campbell. This may not work. They get hot, put themselves in position week 18 to make the playoffs. Got a game against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau. By the way, Green Bay was red hot at that point too. Green Bay controlled their own division regardless of what happened in the NFL that day. As for the Detroit Lions, they needed a Seattle Seahawks loss early in the day, and they needed to beat Green Bay to get in the postseason. Well, Seattle won like 30 minutes before Detroit took the field. So they knew taking the field at Lambeau, season's over regardless of the outcome. And they knocked out Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, ended Aaron's Packers career, and took Green Bay out of playoff contention. It's like, okay, that's a culture. That doesn't happen most places in the NFL. That is Dan Campbell at his absolute best, and I predicted them before 2023 to go to the NFC Championship game, and by golly gee, that's not exactly what they did. If you got a culture set, if you know who you are, Detroit knows who we are. We're going to run the football. We're going to be creative offensively. We are going to go for it basically every time on 4th down. It's Dan Campbell. Remember that game against Green Bay last year? They're in field goal range, 30 seconds left. I don't think the Packers had any timeouts. And it's like, Dan, kick the field goal, win the game. He's like, no, hell no, I'm going for this. Jared Goff's going to stumble, hand the ball to Montgomery. We're still going to get it. And it's who they are. It's what they want to be. And boy, like you look all around the NFL at all of the best teams, even some of the perennial contenders, do they have a set identity? Heck, I'm not sure today what the Baltimore Ravens identity is. I know Lamar's awesome. I know Derrick Henry, absent the fumbles, is a great player. But defensively, I don't know. I thought defense was kind of in the culture in Baltimore. It's been arguably the worst in the sport outside of the Dallas Cowboys. It's been awful. Detroit is a culture. They know who they want to be. They know they're going to give up a lot of points. The good news is they've got the offense to be able to combat it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, the Tesla kid, who I think is getting better and better. You got Sam Laporta, the 2-headed monster at running back, and the offensive line is rejuvenated. So kudos to Detroit. Very, very, very impressive win against the Baltimore Ravens. I picked Baltimore to win that game, but that was big time. Got some comments here by my guy, Ryan Flowers. If you didn't check out NFL matchups last night, check it out on his YouTube channel. And I'll touch on Baltimore after this. He said Lamar held the ball too long, especially down the stretch, which is fair to say because obviously the Lions had 7 sacks in this game. They got to Lamar consistently. It felt like Lamar would kind of take it, pat the ball, being as elusive as he is. He'd get out of it, and then nobody would separate. And it's like the guy you just avoided is still right there. Like you didn't just break his ankles. He's still coming around to make a play on you. So I think that's a fair criticism. There were a few plays where he could have taken off and ran. Solid win for the Lions. Let's wait and see until a few weeks from now. And that's fair. He said this on the show last night. No, Dallas defense was terrible. And that made Williams look great. I could have made those throws to those open receivers. Not to get off topic, but as I said on Monday, agreed. I mean, the touchdown to DJ Moore on 4th and goal, the first touchdown of the game to Adunze. I said it. The Justin Herbert throw to tie the game for the Chargers against Denver was the second best throw of the weekend. I don't care that Luther Burden was wide open. The throw he made, Caleb Williams made on the flea flicker, was sick. First of all, it's an awful pass, or a toss, I guess, pitch by the running back, by DeAndre Swift on the flea flicker. If it's a flea flicker, hand the ball off running back, give it right back to the quarterback so he's got time. Swift kind of just lollipopped it. And so Caleb has to catch it and throw it almost in one motion. And could not have thrown a better ball. Luther Burden. That's the reason he was the number one pick in 2024. So again, like I said on Monday's show, got to start somewhere. My full segment on Caleb Williams is on the Gryd Network YouTube channel, so feel free to check it out. As for Baltimore, sort of playing off what I just said with Detroit, I don't know what their identity is and what they want to be. I do know this about Baltimore, and I said it after their week 1 loss against the Buffalo Bills. I can tell you they're not winning the Super Bowl this year. Doesn't mean they won't be a great team. Doesn't mean they're not going to win the AFC North. Doesn't mean Lamar isn't going to be in the MVP discussion once again. It just means, okay, do I trust that team over there? Forget their defensive woes, which are rampant. They'll get some guys back from injury. Kyle Van Noy, Matabuke, I believe is his name. I don't think he's going to play this Sunday for the Ravens, but he should be back at some point in the next couple of weeks for Baltimore. Even when they get those guys back, the defense has got Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey and all of these guys. Roquan Smith. Do I trust that team given their extensive history? John Harbaugh in particular, of blowing double-digit leads. Do I trust them to win 4 straight playoff games? Which I said it would have to be 4, not 3. They were not going to get the number 1 seed after that loss to Buffalo. I know we're in week 3. That team ain't getting the 1 seed. They got a big game against Kansas City this weekend. I'm leaning Chiefs. 2-1-2 teams, potentially season on the line. One team's at Arrowhead. One team has got the championship pedigree. And by the way, they've owned Baltimore over the entire Mahomes era. Probably going to go Chiefs in that spot. But regardless, you look up and down this roster. You see the talent. You see the obviously the accomplishments of Lamar and of Derrick Henry. And again, you ask, what do they want to be? What Baltimore team am I getting each and every Sunday? Because in week 1, the defense was atrocious, but it's like, it's Josh Allen. Josh does that to a lot of defenses. And Lamar was out of this world amazing against Buffalo. Again, that third down play he made was sensational. If you had to put a blame list of why the Ravens lost that game to Buffalo, Lamar's at or near the bottom. John Harbaugh's not going on 4th down and short. Derrick Henry's fumble, the Ravens defense throughout. That's what you look at. The execution late in the first half against Buffalo's offense, when Buffalo got a field goal before the end of the half, all of it. Then week 2, defense is fine, but it's the Cleveland Browns offense, which is a Nerf water gun at this point. Derrick Henry goes 11 carries for 23 yards and fumbles, by the way. But Lamar kind of bails them out, so to speak. He has the 4 touchdowns, and he's sensational. And then this week, Lamar is really good, but as Ryan pointed out in the comments aptly, held on the ball too long, took 7 sacks, wasn't able to make a play in the red zone on 4th and goal. Derrick Henry, another fumble, kind of slowed down, which is not very common of this player to do, but he is in year 10. And again, this defense was atrocious and got pushed around. Now, Detroit does that to a lot of teams. But if you're a championship contender, at least Baltimore's supposed to be, if you're a team that going into the preseason, I thought had the best roster along with Philadelphia in the NFL, and scores of NFL analysts like, oh yeah, that team's win the AFC. Yeah, I know they'll only win the 1 AFC championship game in the Lamar Jackson era. Yeah, I know Lamar, who was better last year than usual in the playoffs, but does have a history of being kind of the Aaron Judge of the NFL. Amazing in the regular season, historically great. Production dips significantly in the playoffs. Yeah, that's the team I'm going to trust. I'm not going to trust Josh Allen, who, he just keeps running the Chiefs. What are you going to do? I'm not going to trust the Chiefs, who have been the NFL's dynasty. I'm going to trust Baltimore because, talent and all. Talent doesn't get you to the promised land on its own. Situational coaching, which John Harbaugh has shown us over and over and over again, he does not possess the ability to do so to an elite level. Defense does. I don't know if you watched them through 3 games. They're better than Dallas, but that's not saying much. It's can't stop the run, give up big plays over the top, all of it. I don't look at this as a Baltimore Ravens team that can win the Super Bowl, and I maintain what I said. Doesn't mean that they won't be on Bryson's best 10 in 40 minutes, but it also means it's not a team you trust to win 4 straight playoff games. They're going to win the AFC North because that division's awful. Cleveland is garbage. Cincinnati's garbage now that Burrow's gone, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are what they've unfortunately been for a decade, and that's mid. So the Ravens are going to win the AFC North when it's all said and done, but certainly not a Super Bowl contender. I think Monday night kind of reinforced that. Okay. Josh Tariff joining the show in about 10 minutes. Newest member of the Gryd Network, so definitely feel free to check up on that. He's going to do a great job. I'm looking forward to having conversation with him on the show about some NFL topics. You're going to see more and more of him on the Gryd as time goes on. I did, because Josh came on kind of in the middle of the Wednesday show, similar to what we did last week when Alfred, shout out to Alfred Parslow Jr. Big win for the Mets, by the way. Comeback win over the Chicago Cubs, right? Put themselves in position to get that last wild card spot in the NL. Listen, Red Sox fan, I'm stressed down the stretch. Let's make sure we can get in the postseason. But Sox fans and Mets fans have like this this sort of mano-a-mano kind of, I don't know, allyship, if you will, where we're not exactly fans of each other. Obviously, everybody knows what happened in 1986, but we both hate the Yankees to our core, and so we'll unite on that. There's nothing better than at Fenway or at Citi Field when the two teams are playing and Yankees sucks chance break out. Oh, beautiful. So I hope the Mets get in. I really do. So shout out to Alfred. But when Alfred came on last week midway through, and now Josh has come on the show midway through, we're going to move carving up the context to early in the show. So, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I wanted to talk about the Giants rookie quarterback from Ole Miss, Jaxson Dart. Something about these Ole Miss quarterbacks going to the Giants, right? Eli Manning back in the day, now Jaxson Dart, who it was announced yesterday by Brian Daboll, the Giants organization, is going to start. Dart's going to start in week 4 against a vaunted opponent, Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator for the Chargers, and that LA defense, which before we even get into it, this is going to do something we move forward, try to create like little new bits. I've said many times that Jaxson Dart is the Anakin Skywalker of the NFL, not in terms of like the villain to, or the hero to villains type of arc. We'll see how that plays itself out, but because he literally tries to impersonate Anakin Skywalker. He's got the scar on his eye with the eye black, the hair, all of it. So since we're talking about Anakin Skywalker, and I also know as Jaxson Dart, Anakin Skywalker time.
This is where the fun begins.
This is where the fun begins, indeed. So here's the thing, because there's been a lot of why the heck are the Giants starting Jaxson Dart? Well, there's some pretty easily explainable reasons why this is. Not saying that they're correct, but this is why the Giants are doing it. First of all, this game is going to be played in the Meadowlands. This is a home game at MetLife Stadium. And the last time the Giants played at MetLife Stadium, Sunday Night Football against the KC Chiefs, they were getting booed off the field. In particular, Russell Wilson was getting booed off the field. So there was an element of, man, the way this Chargers defense have been rolling, we can't put Russell back out there and 2-3 and outs, and the crowd is incredulous. Like, oh my God, what are we doing? Like, throw Jameson, throw Dart, do something. Russell's not going to work. Russell's out here hitting the goalpost on 4th and goal passes and airmailing Malik Neighbors by 15 feet. Like, what are we doing? So that's number one. That's the simplest way. Is Joe Shane, in particular, Giants GM, Brian Daboll to a degree as well, did not want to get booed back-to-back weeks by the home fans. That just makes the seat hotter and hotter and hotter that they happen to be sitting on currently. Second of all, pretty easily, easy to describe is the fact that Daboll wants to keep his job afloat. And the fact of the matter is, if they start Jameis Winston, which is probably smarter for Dart's development, which we'll get into in just a moment, if Jameis plays well against the Chargers, he starts next week against the Saints. And if he plays well against the Saints, okay, now you're 2-3 or at least 1-4, but you play well against the Chargers. And then Jameis goes through a stretch of where he's throwing picks. And now you throw Dart back out there. Dart might not be ready, and the Daboll loses his job. So Daboll's essentially trying to fast track this. Obviously, and I talked about this on Monday's show and did not go unnoticed by me. And I think a lot of Giants fans, when Tirico and Collinsworth on NBC on the broadcast the other night were just effusive. Like, man, we need to talk to people in this Giants organization. They are just starstruck by Jaxson Dart. They are blown away by what this kid is doing. Kind of telling the NFL that this kid is on the rise, kind of like I remember very similar reports coming out about Mahomes in his rookie year when he only played one game behind Alex Smith in 2017. I don't think it's that so much as it is to send a message to the organization. Hey, guys, we've got this kid's special. This kid we traded for late first round out of Ole Miss. He's the next thing. He is the next franchise quarterback in the New York Giants that we've been looking for since Eli Manning. To send a message, just wait. Don't let us go yet. We're going to put him in. But I went over the data. So I kind of did a similar segment last week. It was on Baker Mayfield after the Bucs won a comeback game. They've won another comeback game since, obviously. But talking about Baker Mayfield and the where you land matters theory among NFL quarterbacks. And if you look at the ones that have been uber successful, they mostly went to well-run franchises. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, all of these guys. And there's this case study of guys that went to crappy organizations, went to new franchises that are well run. Baker, Sam Darnold, they crushed. Or in the case of Jared Goff, was drafted in a dysfunctional franchise and was a disaster. But then they get McVay. I believe Les Snead was hired. I think Les Snead was hired that same offseason, and Jared Goff's a different player. And he goes to Detroit when they were rebuilding into a good organization with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Goff's a different quarterback. And you saw the reverse of that with Carson Wentz, who is excellent early on in Philadelphia, a well-run franchise, and is starting on a 6th team in 6 years at this point. And so I was thinking about this Jaxson Dart, and I was going down the list. Okay, like since 2016, first-round quarterbacks that have been awesome not week one, but the second they came in the NFL. And I wrote down 5 names. Baker, Herbert, Stroud, Jaden, Bo Nix. Like guys that were, if you ask the fan base, how do you feel about the rookie season? We've got our guy for the future, no questions asked. Like we are good. You ask any Browns fan, Chargers fan, Texans, Commanders, and Broncos fan, we've got our guy for the future, no questions asked. Then there were guys who were fine, like you feel good, you feel optimistic, but didn't blow your socks off. Wentz, Lamar, Kyler, Burrow, Tua, Mac Jones even. Mac Jones did have a good rookie year. It was mostly Josh McDaniels, but Mac Jones had a decent rookie year. And then you go down the list of needed to sit. There's needed to sit and awful, and there's a lot of names in both. Needed to sit. And some did, by the way. Trubisky, Mahomes, Daniel Jones, Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Cam Ward I kind of put in this category. It's a little too early to tell. A year sitting would not have hurt the guy. And then in the awful category, Goff, Darnold, Josh Allen was bad as a rookie. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Bryce Young. So what you see is a very small percentage are awesome right off the bat. Baker, Herbert, Stroud, Jaden, Bo Nix. A slightly bigger group was fine. Wentz, Lamar, Kyler, Burrow, Tua, Mac Jones. And by the way, that didn't mean that wasn't necessarily an indicator of what those players would be. Like Baker, again, was moved on from, did live up to being that number 1 overall pick type of guy, just with a different franchise in Tampa. Mac Jones was not. And then you go in the needed to sit / awful. Trubisky, Mahomes, Daniel Jones, Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Cam Ward, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Bryce Young. Is that the moral of the story is like eventually you do have to get out there and play. But this is not a move that is going to be in the best interest of the development of Jaxson Dart. It's that simple. And listen, I'm pulling for the kid. But to ask him at home, and listen, he's got weapons. He's got Cam Scadaboo running the football. Andrew Thomas is back in that lineup as the left tackle. Malik Neighbors is an absolute stud. The Robinson kid's nice. Like they've got Giants have some nice pieces offensively. And Daboll can coach offense. But this is a move. And I'm not even saying it's wrong, so to speak. Like, of course you're going to try and keep your job if you have the opportunity to do so. But it's Daboll's hanging on for dear life from a coaching perspective. Shane's holding on for dear life from a GM and also from a PR perspective because he was famously the guy who let Saquon Barkley go on Hard Knocks. By the way, Daniel Jones kind of crushing it with the Colts right now. Not the best look for Daboll or Joe Shane. This week's a little bit briefer edition of Carving Out the Context. History isn't on Dart's side as it relates to being great immediately, which is bad news for Daboll and Shane. Collinsworth had a great line. I'd never heard it before. I'm sure it's said around NFL circles that when you draft a young franchise quarterback in the first round, you're drafting him for the next coach. Because if you need, most cases, if you needed a franchise quarterback in the first round, chances are you probably had a high pick or you traded up because somebody left or somebody didn't pan out. And by the time that guy develops, you're gone. Most of these guys don't have CJ Stroud or Jaden Daniels type rookie years. They just don't. Most of them are okay, like Mitch Trubisky or, Justin Fields. And then some guys are just atrocious, who, by the way, end up being phenomenal. Josh Allen was awesome from year 3 on. Year 1, he was a 52% completion guy. He was terrible. He's athletic, but he was terrible. Hadn't needed time to develop. So I'm pulling for Jaxson Dart. The kid has upside off the charts. Then this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I think it will it would be in his best interest, obviously, not to play, but I think just to save the necks of everybody in the Giants organization, he will do so. All right, we'll be back in just 1 minute or so. Going to hopefully get Josh Tariff on the line, get that worked out with him super quickly. We'll be back. Josh Tariff joining Carving Up Live to discuss all the biggest headlines around the National Football League. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Josh Tariff will be joining us shortly. Before he does, I did want to give a heads up on and continue to advertise what's going on in my world and at the Gryd Network. Saturday morning tailgate. Check it out every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Gryd Network's YouTube channel. Myself, Tim Barnard, and Arthur Hurst, all of which are big college football fans. Very, very excited to get to episode 3. Poor Tim, his Gators are just falling apart right now. My Vols got a big game against Mississippi State. I think Ohio State might be in a bye week this week. So check out Saturday morning tailgate this Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. And check out the Bryson Carver Show on 89.5 The Edge. You'll be able to listen to that via the TuneIn app. The Bryson Carver Show every Monday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern, and every Friday from noon Eastern to 2 p.m. Very special guest joining the show for the first time in the history of the Gryd Network. Please give a warm welcome to Josh Tariff, who is joining Carving Up Live. Josh, how are you doing, my man? Welcome in.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be hanging out on the Gryd. Excited to talk with you as well. I've heard some things. I've heard some things about you. You know, some of them may be even positive.
They might be positive. That comes as a bit of a surprise. Given the people at our network, that actually catches me by surprise a little bit, Josh. I'm not gonna lie to you, but you're gonna fit in well. First of all, before we even get into some topics, kind of tell people about yourself, tell people about your background in the world of sports, and what we're at the Gryd Network going to be getting soon.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm born and raised in Massachusetts. Proud Akron Zip. Got my degree out in Akron, so I have a soft spot for Cleveland sports teams, but my go-to diehard team, even though from Massachusetts, school in Ohio, live in Los Angeles, lifelong, as you can see behind me, Orlando Magic fan.
Oh, nice.
I am a lifelong Magic fan, love the NBA, as well as NFL, fantasy football, all your sports betting, poker, and as well as I also work in the world of professional wrestling. I analyze it, and I work as a manager and a character along the independent circuit as well. So a lot of different background in talking and performing in various sports and entertainment, and excited to bring hopefully a little bit of that over here to the Gryd.
I'm looking forward to I think I can speak for everybody in saying we're excited to have you in. And first of all, on the wrestling front, we've got some big wrestling fans in. Barry Grant Jr. of the All Even Podcast, Alfred Parsons.
He won't shut up to me about wrestling already. Like I've been part of the team for like 24 hours, and I have about 100 messages from him.
He doesn't shut up to me about it. And I don't even watch it. It's like, dude, like you got other people to talk about this. I don't know why you're dumping this, on my plate. But no, shout out to Barry and Alfred. I will say on your Orlando Magic point, I was actually in brief story. I was in Orlando, Florida for the Disney College program earlier this spring. And I got an opportunity to attend my Golden State Warriors taking on your Orlando Magic. And Mr. Curry ended up dropping 56 points in that game. So that was pretty fantastic to watch. That was,
I mean, Steph's pretty good. He's decent. Okay. He's okay.
I've heard good things. Things. For sure. But so excited to have you on. So some NFL topics right at the bat. So I just got recently done talking about the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, Detroit winning that game 38-30. Takeaways from this game. I'll start kind of on the Baltimore side because they're kind of the team that, even despite the fact Detroit has had equivalent amount of success as Baltimore, a conference championship game appearance and a loss in the divisional round in the last 2 seasons. Baltimore's kind of this team that's been on the doorstep. Lamar's a 2-time MVP. Derrick Henry is probably the best back of this generation. I don't think they can win a Super Bowl. I have not seen enough, certainly from this defense, that brings me to believe that they can win 4 straight playoff games with their inability to close when they have double-digit leads. Am I wrong on that? I mean, is it too early to say that? Am I basing this too much off of their history? What's your take on that?
I agree with you. As of right now, the way the Ravens are, no, I do not see them as a Super Bowl caliber team. Obviously, we know the stats are there between Lamar and Derrick Henry. And we also know Zay Flowers is on pace to become a stud type wide receiver. They have all that. As we know, and as we clearly saw on Monday against the Detroit Lions, and we saw in week 1 against the Buffalo Bills with their, epic collapse, the Ravens defense is non-existent, which has become a sentence that not many people thought they would ever utter. The Ravens have given up 97 points so far this season in 3 weeks. That is tied for the most with the Miami Dolphins. Oof. You can't do that. And on top of that, even though they've given up 97 points, they have scored 111. So you would think, they at least still putting up more points. They have scored more points in the first 3 weeks with a losing record than anyone ever. And it doesn't get easier for them. They got the Chiefs, who we know they're also desperate for a win. And in a couple weeks, they got the Rams. Later in the season, they got the Packers. We know they play Pittsburgh twice, and those guys will always go head-to-head. So the Ravens are reaching this point where it's clearly like a plateau. They could be the top of the division, could have home field, but what are they going to do beyond that? While we see Buffalo continue to develop and grow, we see the Chargers continue to develop and grow. And Lamar Jackson, to me, unless he could get to the Super Bowl this year, which right now you and I are in agreement that they're not going to, he has quickly become, to me, the James Harden of the NFL. He is becoming the guy who MVP caliber talent, incredible stats. You absolutely want him on your team in the regular season. But when you have to evolve and when the games matter the most, whether he gives a good performance, a great performance, or a non-existent performance, the team doesn't follow suit around him. This past Monday, he did great. Obviously, the rest of the team did not appear to do so. We've seen his history in the playoffs. So with this, the Ravens are in a really weird tipping point. I'll tell you what, if they knew Micah Parsons was available, they probably should have offered a trade for that because that would have changed everything.
It definitely would. And by the way, it's not like they didn't have a good pass rush last year. I mean, I think Kyle Van Noy had something like 12 and a half sacks. Yeah. They've got some good interior linemen, but still, you could say the same thing about Green Bay with Rashawn Gary. They had Kenny Clark, obviously, that was involved in the deal to Dallas. But yeah, that would have been a good, interconference swap. It would have been a different sort of dynamic for Dallas, where they wouldn't be having to play Green Bay this weekend, as opposed to Baltimore, where they'd see every 2 to 4 years, depending on the circumstances. Got some comments here by our guy Alfred Parso Jr. He said King Henry forgot how to secure the ball. Yeah, three straight games with 3 straight fumbles for Derrick Henry. Ravens shouldn't have ever lost week 1 to Buffalo. The Bills didn't win that game. The Ravens lost it, but he says the Ravens will win the AFC North. I agree. Listen, I'm a huge Steelers fan, but I've seen enough from this offense. It's a water pistol at this point. Aaron Rodgers is washed. I've gone over this a number of times. I don't want to talk about the Steelers. It gets me down the dumps. It gets me down the dumps, Josh. I don't like it. On the line,
I'm not trying to get down the dumps. We're trying to have fun here. We're talking football.
100%, of course. That's what we're here to do. Detroit Lions. But before we even discuss Detroit, let's show Dan Campbell, because he is the ultimate hype man. Dan Campbell locker room after the Detroit Lions win over the Baltimore Ravens on Monday night.
All right, man. That's a great win. We did exactly what we said we needed to do. Play complimentary freaking football, man. When we needed it most, every phase picked up the slack, man. That's how you win games against teams like that, man. And now you know what the barometer is like on the AFC. It's a great win.
I mean, how can you not love that guy? He is the ultimate culture builder in the NFL. Goes for it on 4th down. Is Detroit back as a legit, if they ever even left as a legit contender in the NFC rather? Do you feel like this offense isn't going to miss a beat from what they have in the last couple of years when they have Ben Johnson?
I mean, so far overall, so good. They definitely, got a rude awakening, week 1 with Green Bay, but along with that was going to be the question. How will they adapt losing their offense coordinator and their defensive coordinator? Will they still find the magic? The pieces are still there. David Montgomery is still running well beyond his age. Jahmyr Gibbs ain't even at his prime yet. Amon-Ra St. Brown, we know what he can do. Sam Laporta. And then the defense side with Aiden Hutchinson, healthy. So they have everything put together to try to keep going there. And with a guy like Dan Campbell, I mean, listen to that. I was ready to run through a wall, and I'm glad I stayed in my seat and on here, because then I would have been on my way to a hospital. But all that said, they're still going to be a threat. Again, there are a few other threats in the NFC, but Detroit is certainly still in the conversation.
That division race between them and Green Bay is going to be a blast, and I think they actually play on Thanksgiving Day, which get the best game early on like that. That's as good as it gets right there. It's fantastic. And Alfred says the Lions are dangerous on both sides of the ball, and they're coached by someone the players want to play for. Yeah. And it's there's the old cliche that you can lose games, you can't lose the locker room. And Dan Campbell wins 3 games in year 1, but they're in almost all of them. Year 2, they get off to a 1-6 start. Get hot at the second half of the year, and they've been a contender ever since. On the other side, team that's not just a contender, but the defending champions is the Philadelphia Eagles, who made an incredible 19-point second half comeback against the Los Angeles Rams, won that game 33-26. Let me ask you before I even get to my Jalen Hurts question. You didn't take Rams plus 3.5, right? Because that was very difficult for a lot of people out there.
Thankfully, I avoided that one in my parlay. I felt like a genius because I actually in my parlay had Panthers money line.
I picked them to upset, so there you go.
I also though picked Packers.
So
that kind of ruined the whole parlay thing. So I avoided this game, and that play at the end, it was one of those moments where you literally just like jump off the chair with oh my God, I can't believe they blocked a field goal again. And then B, oh my God, there is no reason for him to run it in, and he is running it in, and so many people are going to be angry now.
And that plays like that are tailor-made for the great Scott Van Pelt on Bad Beats on Sportsnet. Like that's as good as it gets, or bad as it gets, depending on what side of it you're on. But Jalen Hurts, who I've defended ad nauseum on this show, I thought the narratives in the offseason about he can't necessarily beat you with his arm. I'm like, I don't know. I saw him do it in the Super Bowl against Kansas City, where it's like the consensus. If the Chiefs want to win the Super Bowl, they got to take Saquon Barkley out. Well, they did. And not to take credit from Philadelphia's defense, because they were exceptional, but Jalen Hurts was great. And against, obviously, the Los Angeles Rams, there is no Saquon Barkley to take him away, at least in the second half, and he was simply sensational. 3 touchdowns, no picks. Completion percentage not amazing at 62%, but he had 212 in the second half and a passer rating of 118, including the game-winning touchdown on 4th and goal to Devontae Smith. Listen, he's the consummate professional, consummate leader. Like, everybody agrees on that. Is it fair to say? I think it is. Let me ask you, Josh. Is Jalen Hurts an elite quarterback?
In a word, yes. And part of that is it's not – stats don't make a quarterback elite. They make him very good. They make him MVP caliber. What makes a quarterback elite is finding ways to lead and motivate the team to victory. This guy has been in 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, won 1 of them, got the Super Bowl MVP, has put the team on his back when needed, whether it's to throw for 200 yards in one half in a huge comeback like we saw last week, or the previous week where they weren't doing anything on offense against the Chiefs. However, found ways to manage the game enough to be able to get them to victory, to the point where, Chris Jones yelling at him about, man, you only have 100 yards. And Jalen Hurts has the mindset of, we won the game. And that's what's most important. That's what's most important to the elite quarterbacks. I'll tell you this. You ask Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, what's more important to them? The stats getting those numbers or leading teams to victory and finding ways to win, they're going to say it's finding ways to win. Are there quarterbacks that are quote unquote better than Jalen Hurts? I mean, yeah. Are there a couple that can throw further than him? Sure. Lamar Jackson can run faster than him? Sure. But to combine them with the humbleness and willingness to win and put his teammates on his shoulders to remind them, hey, A.J. Brown, I know you're a top 5 receiver in the league, but you know what? Tonight, we don't really need you. Hey, today in the second half, we need you. And to be able to lead that and do that, that is what makes a quarterback elite. He is one of the select few that are on that elite level with Mahomes and with Josh Allen.
And what really irritates me as much as anything, Josh, is this, system quarterback, which that's starting to die out a little bit, to which I ask, which of the 6 systems that he has been in Philadelphia, 6 different play callers since he joined the Eagles in 2020. Like he's on a new, different offensive coordinator now. And if the fans don't like him now, because he's ultra conservative type of play caller, let's feed Saquon, even if Saquon doesn't end up going. And again, I think Barkley will at some point hit a stride around midseason, but obviously has gotten off to a slow start and Jalen has picked them up. I talked about Jaxson Dart, and again, we know on the surface level, this is Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen trying to retain their jobs. And the fact of the matter is this game against the Chargers is in MetLife Stadium. So there was the element of, last time we were at MetLife Sunday night against the Chiefs, we were getting booed because Russell Wilson is trying to hit the goalpost rather than hit Malik Neighbors in the red zone. But I also kind of looked down the list. I'm like, at least for year one, the hit rate for a quarterback, forget to be great. I counted 5 guys who had amazing rookie years in the last decade since 2016. It is an overwhelming, list of guys who either, probably should have sat year one or were just outright bad. I don't want to put Jaxson Dart into that category just yet. What do you expect from him? Again, this is Jesse Minter in an outstanding Chargers defense. It's not like he's playing with an empty cupboard. Andrew Thomas is back at left tackle, Cam Scadaboo, Malik Neighbors, good young core there. What do you expect from him in this next game against the Chargers? And do you expect him for the time being to keep Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen's job in New York?
I love this question because I was really thinking about it, and I was talking with a buddy of mine just last night about the Jaxson Dart start. Say that 5 times fast. And my friend that I was talking with, diehard, lifelong Cleveland Browns fan. And he has the mindset of, I don't care that the Browns won against the Packers. We should be starting Dillon Gabriel and throw him out there because we know we're not built to win this season, but we need to be able to have them develop and have someone like Flacco help be kind of like an extra coach in a way for Dillon Gabriel. And I feel, while on one hand, you're throwing Jaxson Dart to the Wolves and having his first start be against the Chargers, what the hell you're doing? He's going to get beat up. At the same time, the Giants should have the mindset going, hey, we know we want to be improving, but we know this roster realistically, unless a miracle happens, was not going to the Super Bowl. So Jaxson Dart should be in sooner than later, and Russell Wilson be the one to help coach and mediate someone with the experience and knowledge to help share that. Because there have been some instances where if you are sitting behind a quarterback that is around their prime, then it's great for them to sit for a year and learn. Go back 2017, Patrick Mahomes, rookie year, sat behind Alex Smith, and that would happen to be Alex Smith's career year in yards and touchdowns. He threw for over 4,000 yards that year and 26 touchdowns, which for him were his best. You look at Jordan Love. Well, the year that he first sat behind Aaron Rodgers won MVP that year. So that's why those quarterbacks, and I know there's just a couple little examples, but those ones made sense to sit behind someone to really learn, because those are guys that were in their prime. When you're looking at Joe Flacco, and in this case, Russell Wilson, these are guys who have the experience, but well past their prime and are not being consistent with their numbers. These are not guys that you can sit and watch for a year anymore if you're really trying to grow. Those ways for those teams, the way to grow is to have them go out there get some hits, but build reps and build a rapport with those teammates to see what sticks and what doesn't. So now you know in the next draft and the next draft on what you need to build around to then elevate to that next level.
Do you think there's any validity to the, okay, if Jaxson Dart's not ready, just start Jameis Winston argument?
I would honestly, at this point, you got Jaxson Dart, you got Russell Wilson. I would have Jaxson learn from Russell as much as he can.
Okay.
And get whatever draft capital you can out of sending Jameis to a team that has injuries at quarterback, like a Cincinnati. I mean, obviously that's the one that really stands out.
Sure.
I mean, it'd be funny to send him back to New Orleans because they're just such a complete mess. But
there's no way. Yeah, they're trying to get Garrett Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers.
Send him to Miami with Tua.
Sure.
You know, like, but you can then get an extra pick. Obviously, you're not getting a first round pick for Jameis Winston, but you know, hey, maybe you're going to get a 5th round pick, and you know what? That extra pick will do something in building around Jaxson Dart, because he is going to have the tutelage from Russ to help build it. And only with him developing, wins and losses should not matter with his development. I know that sounds crazy at the beginning, but you know, if he goes 9-1, oh my God, we found the next guy. If he goes 3-6, well, you know what? They're trying to build around that, and seeing the growth and seeing how he's learning, that should be the determination factor in Brian Daboll's job, not just win-loss, because you have to give him the chance to grow. You can't just go out there and play. Well, you go out there and play. What is he learning from it? Because if he goes out and plays and lost, well, okay, what is he studying on the film tape? Can we get him to learn things for that next week? If we can, great. Then we should stick around with this coaching system for a little bit. If nothing's clicking, okay, then we know it's not Jaxson Dart, at least as of yet. We got to bring in another coach.
Well, your point about Daboll and the win-loss aspect of it goes back to something I think Collinsworth made the point in the broadcast the other night, where he said, you know, you draft a quarterback, you draft first-round quarterback for the next coach. Obviously, as in, by the time he develops, you get somebody else in there. So we'll see how it plays out, obviously. Has there been anybody this season, any team this season that has stood out to you, like, oh, that kind of caught me off guard? Like, we can look at an Indianapolis at 3-0 with Daniel Jones, who's kind of, is he going to be 2025 version of Sam Darnold last year? Has there been anyone who's kind of taking you off guard in a positive way, in a negative way, where we're still early in the season, we're still in September, but you're thinking this team could go a little bit further than we thought?
I mean, you have to start that with the Colts and Daniel Jones. I mean, that's obviously where it has to start, because not only are the Colts 3-0, not only is he comeback of the year candidate. Right now, Daniel Jones, I know it's only 3 weeks in, he's an MVP candidate right now. At this point in the season, how can he not be? But along with that, Jonathan Taylor has been blowing up with it. Michael Pittman has had a fantastic year. Their defense has been incredible so far this season. So are they going to keep this up? We'll have to wait and see. And to me, I think a huge surprise on the other side in the same division is Houston, because we knew Houston was, you know, last year they still won the division, but took a couple steps back because they had a lot of injuries, especially at wide receiver. So it's like, okay, CJ Stroud, you had that little sophomore slump that people know about. How are we going to bounce back? How are we going to move forward? We don't have Stephon Diggs anymore, but he was hurt. Tank Dell is still hurt. We're not going to have him. Joe Mixon starting the year hurt, but we're bringing in Nick Chubb, who actually for the first time in a few years had a healthy offseason. So then maybe we can do things to, you know, still maintain the course. And their mindset, fight with Jacksonville for the division. And then all of a sudden, here comes Indy, just right out of the gates. And right now, when you look at the stats, CJ Stroud is one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Everyone is calling for Caleb Williams. He's putting up better numbers than CJ Stroud. And that's a big issue with Houston.
Well, there's a funny side screen, or split screen rather, a funny graphic that's gone around the internet where ever since Stroud kind of say, hey, young fella, here's how it works. Like, bro, it's the sophomore lecturing the freshman. Like, that's not how it works. And so that's been really interesting to see. So, okay. So you're joining the Gryd now. We're very excited to have you join. Just as a heads up, everything that Barry Grant Jr. says is complete BS. Okay. I just want you to know that it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Anything that myself, Alfred Parsard Jr., like we are the guys who run this thing. Okay. Just as a heads up. Okay.
Because Barry said a lot of positive things about you. So therefore I should not believe it. Got it. All right. Damn, cool.
Crap.
Understood.
Just undid that. Gosh darn it, man.
Yeah.
All right, Josh Tariff, appreciate you joining the show. Very excited to have you as a part of the Gryd, and hopefully we can have you back on the show in the future.
We'll love to. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Josh Tariff, very excited to have him aboard on the Gryd. He's going to do fantastic work for us as time goes on. And yeah, to his point, and obviously we're picking on Barry because he is the co-founder along with our friend Mike Guido of the Gryd. Yeah, there's certainly an element when you talk about the AFC South. I thought Houston would take a step back. I thought there was an element of, okay, offensive line troubles. The fact that they moved on from Laramie Tunsil was a weird move for me. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is gone, but he was, as Josh pointed out, injured midseason. Tank Dell with a devastating injury late season. It's Nico Collins, a bunch of guys. Even moving on from John Mechie was an odd move. It's like, at least give yourself some depth at that position. They moved him, obviously, to Philadelphia. And it's kind of a shame because Houston might very well have the best defense in football. I mean, they top to bottom. Secondary is great. I knew they moved on from C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but I see my guy, Alfred. Barry Grant Jr. is a con man. APJ, Alfred Parsons Jr., Bryson Garber are the truth. You know it is. That's a funny line though by Josh. Don't believe Barry on anything that you've said. But yeah, very excited to have Josh as a part of a Gryd. All right, I guess I don't need these headphones anymore. Okay, Bryson's Best 10. It's a segment we do each and every week on Wednesdays. Rank my top 10 teams in the National Football League. So without further ado, let's go. Bryson's Best 10. Here we go. All right, we will start at number 10 in the National Football League. Back on this segment for the first time in just under 2 years. Welcome back, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So they are literally a butt fumble, not by Sam Darnold, not by the quarterback, not in the Mark Sanchez sense, but by Darnold off of an offensive lineman's backside from being 3-0. Before that, they are a week one, just play the ball that Brock Purdy threw right to you, pulling that in from being 3-0. They go to Pittsburgh, just absolutely beat the dog crap out of my Steelers in the second half, win by 14, special teams gaffes hurt the Steelers. They got to Aaron Rodgers, forced turnovers, all of it. And on the other side, a week later, yes, they were supposed to be the Saints. I get it. But 38-6 is noteworthy. Okay, I understand New Orleans is bad. It was their first road game of the season. It's why I had that game on If I Were a Bet Man. But at the end of the day, that is Darnold was fantastic, had a perfect pass ring throwing beyond the 6. I think he was like 9 for 10. Smith and Jigba, the receiving core is much better than folks gave it credit for outside of Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp. Defensively, McDonald is a defensive guy. Defensive line is really strong. They added some guys in the offseason. We'll see if Devon Witherspoon is out long term, but I really like the Seahawks. They were not ranked last week. They are the 10th best team in the National Football League. At number 9, falling, ladies and gentlemen, 4 spots to this point. It is the team we've talked about all show, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So you can't trust their defense, obviously, as Josh pointed out, just giving up long run plays to Montgomery, to James Cook. In week one, they have no ability to get to the quarterback on a consistent basis. The secondary, which it should not be the case, especially with guys like Kyle Hamilton in the back end, has been atrocious through the first 3 weeks of the season. I mean, even giving up 17 to Cleveland, this is kind of bad. It's given how quiet and how just limited that offensive is in Cleveland. Going to Baltimore, putting up 17, that's something. That's a little bit of a concern. And we know what Josh Allen did, hanging 41, and the Lions did, hanging 38, the second of which obviously being in Baltimore. Listen, Lamar Jackson is a special talent. We know who he is. But listen, we have struggled. We have concerns about him in the postseason. I've said for years on the show, I have major concerns about John Harbaugh, not just in the postseason, but the element of, can you hold double-digit leads in the second half of games? Well, quite simply, he's been the worst coach in the league at that. The fumbling problem from Derrick Henry is something. I think he's going to correct it. If there's anybody I think can fix ball carrying issues, it's probably Derrick Henry, who's been the best back in football over the course of the last decade. When it's all said and done, the Ravens are still going to win the AFC North without question. The Steelers are mid, the Browns are awful, the Bengals, that Burrow, are awful in virtually every way, shape, and form, aside from Jamar Chase, I guess. But the Ravens, ninth best team in the NFL. I cannot trust them in these big games. They are the ninth best team in the NFL. At number 8, up 2 spots from last week, a team with a losing record like Baltimore. They're going to be playing Baltimore. It is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, by no means an impressive win over the Giants on Sunday night, 22-9, in which the offense just could not get anything going up until the third quarter when Mahomes was moving and grooving out of the pocket, making plays to a Tyquan Thornton, who looks like he might have actually a rapport with him. Big news for the Chiefs, though, was actually just announced and reported today that Xavier Worthy is a full participant in practice. He will be back for Kansas City, so they lost some third play of the game against the Chargers when the whole game plan was geared around Xavier Worthy. Week 2, they obviously could have used his services. Travis Kelce, he's going to give you what he can give you. He's going to be good situationally. Week 2, the drop against Philadelphia notwithstanding. Good situationally, good on third down. He's more of a possession tight end more than a big play tight end at this stage of his career. I do have major concerns about Kansas City's ability to consistently run the football with Kareem Hunt, with Pacheco. Can Pacheco just get to some semblance of what he was his rookie year in 2023? I hope he can for his sake, because he's a really fun player to watch. Again, once they get Rashee Rice back in the lineup with Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Kelce as kind of your third down target, Kansas City will be in good shape. And their defense, after that game against the Chargers, I think it's been awesome through the first couple of weeks of the season. Now, some of that is obviously you're playing the New York Giants and Russell Wilson, seemingly something that Dallas struggled to do. But the Chiefs, they'll be fine. They are the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, an undefeated team that fell slightly because of last week. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So the reason they actually fell a spot is not just because the game against the Jets was close and the block kick that had Aaron Glenn dancing on the sideline. It was a great, great moment. Shout out to Aaron Glenn, who's, I think, building a culture with the Jets. But for Tampa, it's the injuries more than anything, folks. It's the fact that they're obviously having to win these games close, and I'm not going to be the guy, I'm not going to be a hypocrite where I praised the Kansas City Chiefs for doing a year ago. In the first half of 2023, I praised the Eagles for doing the same thing. I'm not just going to rip Tampa Bay for Baker Mayfield being Mr. Clutch over the course of the first 3 weeks of the season. But Kalijah Kancey gone for the season. They have some injuries to their offensive line. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans is now out 2 to 3 weeks. Like, that is a real legit concern for this group. Listen, I love Emeka Egbuka. I loved him out of the draft at Ohio State. Made a sick one-handed catch against the Jets. Made the catch that got him into field goal range, where they ended up winning on the walk-off at the end, home in Tampa in the creamsicle jerseys. Baker Mayfield, as I said it before the season, is a real legit MVP candidate. They're going to have to rely on the run game moving forward. It's going to be kind of Emeka Egbuka or bust in terms of the pass game. They do have Cade Otton, to be fair. The defense is going to have to step up. Todd Bowles, the defensive guy. Did not like what I saw from them as a collective, kind of letting their foot off the gas pedal in the fourth quarter against Tyrod Taylor and the Jets. I think they'll be fine. They're certainly going to cruise to the NFC South title based on what we've seen the first 3 weeks and what we thought coming in. The injuries, though, do concern me. The Bucs are the 7th best team in the National Football League. At number 6, the 6th best team in the National Football League, dropping 3 spots, it is the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, obviously, the blown 19-point lead to lose to the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia was devastating. I thought the Rams would go in, win that game. I thought the fact that Philadelphia had some real concerns with their secondary. Obviously, we'll touch on Philly at some point in this list. But Matthew Stafford threw the football well down the field to Devontae Adams. They ran the football very effectively early on with Kyron Williams. That Rams offensive line, the fact that in the playoff game and then in this game, was able to show some form of dominance against that Eagles front. Again, Nolan Smith got hurt in that game, obviously, but Jalen Carter's out there was something. He's Jordan Davis as well. That was something. The defense, though, is a little bit of a concern, at least the back end. I could very well see the Rams going after a defensive back, a corner in particular, at the trade deadline. The front four is awesome. Jared Verse, Byron Young, they're great. I know they weren't able to consistently get to Jalen Hurts in the second half. They're great. I don't have any concerns about that side of the ball. Sean McVay, to me, is the second best coach in the league to Andy Reid. But just the ability to finish these games, I still think they're a great team. I still think they're definitely going to win the NFC West. I don't trust San Francisco long-term. The Rams are the 6th best team in the National Football League. I felt kind of embarrassed putting this team at number 1 after the way this week played out. They fall 4 spots to the number 5 spot. It is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So yes, I did have them at number 1 last week because of 2 dominant wins against 2 really good teams in Detroit. That win does look much better today, given how the Lions have played, and then obviously against the Washington Commanders on a short week. Listen, I still have no concerns about the defense. We understand Micah Parsons, since he joined that group, they have been almost across the board in every major statistical category, top 5 in terms of points, yards, third down efficiencies, like all of it. The back end of the secondary, which was thought to be a major concern, I don't think it is. I think they're really good on that end, obviously, with McKinney and Nixon. They're good on that side. Hafley's done a really good job with this defense. It's the big question is Jordan Love. We know they have the running game with Josh Jacobs. They have some injuries. Zach Tom, the offensive lineman, is probably not going to play this week against Dallas. Receivers are dealing with some injuries, but kind of like Kansas City, some of those guys will come back, and I think Jordan Love will develop somewhat of rapport with Matthew Golden, who I loved out of the draft at some point in time. The question is, can Jordan Love get out of the habit of throwing some very, very bad interceptions? Obviously, he threw the devastating pick last year, or 2 years ago, rather, against the 49ers in that divisional round playoff game that eliminated them, throwing across his body. Like, when he's on a roll, Jordan Love is a rhythm quarterback. When he's playing in consistent rhythm, he's rolling. When he's not, when his mechanics are a bit off, when there's some injuries at wide receiver, he's dealing with pressure, when he's running from Myles Garrett, it's a little bit off kilter. So Matt LaFleur, I trust him to kind of fix those mechanics, especially as we go on throughout the season. He's got to cut down the turnovers. The Packers love their defense, but that was kind of a concerning loss in terms of how they executed late against the woeful Cleveland Browns. The Packers are the 5th best team in the National Football League. At number 4, staying exactly where they were at last week, it is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So again, they did what they were supposed to do. Double-digit win. Game was much closer than the score would indicate. Against a division rival in the Miami Dolphins. I thought Josh Allen was sensational. Multiple touchdowns. He still has yet to throw a pick and have a turnover this season. And again, I cannot praise this guy enough for he led the league in turnovers, folks, between his rookie year and his second year, or rather his 6th year in the NFL. Didn't turn the ball over last year. Literally has not turned the ball over through 3 weeks, to be fair, but has not turned it over this year. James Cook is going to be in the Offensive Player of the Year race. I have no doubts about that. The Bills' offensive line, I think Pro Football Focus had it ranked, I think, as the number 1 line in the NFL. Keon Coleman, I'm telling you, going to develop into a true number 1. Dalton Kincaid's an excellent tight end. They're stacked on offense. I just do not trust this defense long-term, especially with the injuries they've sustained with at Oliver and Matt Milano, who unfortunately consistently gets hurt a lot. Joey Bosa is an older player. Can he give you any semblance of the production that he gave you back in his prime with the Chargers? And I have real concerns about age and injuries on the back end of that Bills secondary. But Josh Allen's a superhero. He's the reigning MVP. I've predicted him to go back-to-back. I feel good about that. The Bills are the 4th best team in the National Football League. At number 3, moving up 5 spots from last week, take a bow through 3 weeks, the Detroit Lions. The Lions are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. Before I tell you why, as we always do when the Lions are on Bryce's Best 10, Dan Campbell, what did y'all do this week against the Baltimore Ravens?
Kneecap.
Well, the kneecaps were bitten in Baltimore. So again, Detroit this is an amazing stat. They have scored in the last 2 games. 90 points. 90 points scored in the last 2 games. That is the most they've scored in a 2-game stretch in 60 years. They didn't do this in the Ben Johnson era. And I'm not saying this to bash Ben Johnson because I think he's a brilliant offensive mind, and I think he's going to build a good culture in Chicago. But even still, that is impressive. That goes to the, a lot of it is Detroit's got incredible personnel offensively. I like the new interior offensive line they've got with the mullet. He appears to have really given this O-line a boost after the retirement, obviously, of Frank Ragnow. You still obviously got Jared Goff, who on his best day can be a top 5 quarterback when he has time to throw. He usually does with that Lions offensive line. Penei Sewell. Dan Campbell sets the culture. Even still, the Lions defense gives up 30. They're going to give up a lot of points. Like, they just have too many holes, particularly at linebacker and in their secondary in that defense. But the fact of the matter is, got to Lamar Jackson 7 times. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, might be about to have the best season of his career after the way he started this new NFL season. Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, the 2-headed monster at running back, Sonic and Knuckles with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, who was the man of the hour multiple times in that game against Baltimore. 2 drives of 95 plus yards against the Ravens, 96 yards and 98 yards. Detroit is rolling. They're a true contender in the NFC once again. Had them go into the NFC title game before the year started, and I feel very good about that today. The Lions are the third best team in the National Football League. At number 2, not just moving 5 spots, but higher by a mile than they've ever been in the history of this segment. It is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are the second best team in the National Football League, and here is why. I mean, they've looked utterly sensational through 3 games. First of all, 3-0 against the division. In the AFC West, we've kind of all recognized that as, if it's not the best division, it's certainly the best coach division with Reed, Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, and Sean Payton. The wins against Kansas City, Raiders, and Denver. And Justin Herbert, quite simply, has been spectacular. In the fourth quarter against the Broncos, was off the charts great. We can show you his numbers, obviously, in this game. A touchdown, no picks, completed 80% of his passes. Fourth quarter alone, had 123 passing yards, and had a passer rating of 123, including an outstanding play to break out of the sack, roll to his left, hit Keenan Allen for a touchdown. Listen, they're starting to find their stride a little bit into what Jim Harbaugh wants them to be, which is a power run team. The loss of Najee Harris does hurt them. Knock on wood. Hopefully he recovers sooner rather than later from that devastating Achilles injury. But I love Damarian Hampton coming out of North Carolina. He had his first touchdown Sunday, starting to get in that rhythm of being a true number 1 back. And the wide receiving core, which wasn't that always a kind of a knock the last couple of years of the Chargers, I don't know. Looks pretty good to me. Quentin Johnston's a good deep threat. He's gotten over his bad case of the drops. Ladd McConkey is who he is. Obviously, he was one of the best rookie receivers in the league last year. Just as productive this year. He's got a good chemistry with Herbert. And Keenan Allen does as well. 1 year gone for the Chargers. Right back in. They pick him up. It doesn't seem like there's any regression whatsoever. And this Chargers defense without Khalil Mack, coached by Jesse Minter. Derwin James is a legit Defensive Player of the Year candidate. They're humming on all cylinders. And by the way, for years, the Chargers didn't have a kicker. Well, they've had one for the last few years. And Cameron Dicker, also known as Dicker the Kicker, well coached, great roster. That is I didn't think I'd be saying this at any point this year, especially with the loss of Rashawn Slater. That is a legit Super Bowl contender are the LA Chargers. They are the second best team in the National Football League, up 5 spots from last week. And up 1 spot from last week, and I felt ashamed looking back in hindsight at dropping them at all. It is the defending Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are the best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So, listen, this defense does have concerns. I got to admit to you, through 3 games, I am not impressed with what I've seen from the secondary. Dory Jackson's cooked each and every week. Quinyon Mitchell, we'll see what he does over the course of the season. It's year 2 for him. Same for Cooper DeJean. The secondary concerns me. But the front 7, Nolan Smith's on IR, so that's a concern. But the front 7 is still awesome. You still have Jalen Carter. You still have Zach Bond. You still have all these playmakers. Jordan Davis, who obviously had the block and return it back for a touchdown to end the game against the Rams. But this offense, which was pretty mediocre to bad. Mediocre against Dallas. Jalen Hurts kind of bailed them out with his legs on multiple occasions on 3rd down. And against Kansas City, it just wasn't good. They didn't run the football effectively on a consistent basis with Saquon. The deep passing game outside of 1 throw to Devontae Smith was not working at all. You're down 19 points in the second half. It's like, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to turn to this guy, Jalen freaking Hurts, who when trailing against the Rams, 3 touchdowns, no picks, passer rating of 118, was simply phenomenal, continuing to prove the false narrative to be just that he is a system quarterback. He's not a system quarterback. He's not just a franchise quarterback. He's an elite quarterback. Again, Fangio, I trust to fix this defense. I don't know if I trust the offensive coaching staff to generate a consistent game plan. We'll see how that continues to play itself out. But it's still the best roster in football. Jalen continues to prove himself, as our guy Josh Tariff said on the show earlier, as one of the true winners in the NFL at the quarterback position. The Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the National Football League. And we'll go and show the top 10 right here on one graphic. So from 10 to 1, Seahawks weren't ranked last week, but they're at number 10. Ravens fell 4 spots to number 9. Chiefs went up 2 spots to number 8. Bucks fell 1 spot to 7. Rams fell 3 spots to 6. Packers fell 4 spots to 5. Bills stayed right where they're at number 4. Lions went up 5 to 3. Chargers went up 5 to 2. And the defending champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, who have not lost a game in which Jalen Hurts started and finished since week 4 of 2024 against the Tampa Bay Bucks. And would you guess who they're going to play in week 4, 2025? The Tampa Bay Bucks. Before we get out of here, give a quick prediction of the Thursday night football game, NFC West matchup between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. Very, very excited. 2-2-1 teams. One obviously in Seattle, who you just heard me say I have at number 10. Cardinals are a 1.5 point favorite in this game. A heartbreaking loss on the road to San Francisco. When they sack Mac Jones for a safety, I'm like, oh, game's over. And then Kyler makes the throw. Zay Jones drops the ball. And then Niners get it back, get in a field goal range, walk it off at the gun with Eddie Pinheiro. So the question is, can Arizona rebound with the game at home? Can they do that? On the other hand, for Seattle, they run the football effectively. Sam Darnold isn't quite putting up the numbers that he did last year in Minnesota, although he was sensational against that Saints defense on Sunday in the 38-6 halftime lead, which became, I believe, a 44-13 victory for the Seahawks. Again, a missed Requiem pick from being undefeated, followed by a Sam Darnold butt fumble off of one of his linemen of being undefeated. Give me the Seattle Seahawks in this game to kick off week 4. They will be 3-1 after this game. 20-16 is my final. Take Seahawks plus 1.5 and to win 20-16. Both defenses are really good. It'll be kind of a low scoring game, but 20-16 is my final. Seahawks over the Arizona Cardinals. And with that, that is all the time for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, X, Instagram, and on Facebook. Want to thank Josh Tariff once again for coming on the show, the newest member of the Gryd Network. Hopefully we can have him on the show once again in the future. I enjoyed, honest to God, my first time, kind of meeting him face to face. So very, very excited to have him on. Hopefully we can do it in the future. Definitely stay tuned for what he's got coming, what we've got coming as a network, which, while we're on that topic, subscribe to the Gryd Network. That is GRYD, the Gryd Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. Please do the same on Carving Up Live. Right down there, if you're on the Carving Up YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button right down there. If you're not on the Carving Up YouTube channel, stop what you're doing. Take 5 seconds, hit the subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. We got all kinds of content coming your way in the form of, obviously, live shows like this, but YouTube shorts, full YouTube clipped videos. Some of my stuff is on the Gryd's YouTube channel, so subscribe to that as well. All kinds of stuff coming y'all's way. We're going to continue to keep the content flowing on this channel and on the Gryd Network and on social media, which you can follow me on all of those platforms, Instagram, X, TikTok, and on YouTube. All right, we will see you guys on Friday. Have a great week. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Let's go, Sox. Let's get in the playoffs, baby. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Gryd Network.